This is Naseem Quraishi Larsson from Boost Your Brand with Film and Digital Story Masters. And I'm here today with my guest, Christoffer Weiss, who's come all the way from Finland to visit me here in Sweden. But you are also going to have a very interesting international event today.
Yes, I'm on my way to Globen, where we're going to have a 3-day speaking training workshop boot camp with Kane Alessia called World Class Speaker.
And Christoffer is here with me today because he's a master of audiovisuals.
Yes.
And you have a fantastic title, I think. Tell us what your title is.
I'm the world's premier audiovisual alchemist.
Yeah, that's a fantastic title. And I've seen you in action. So I'm also going to show you a clip of what it's like to be in one of the events that Christoffer is doing his chemistry.
Yes, magic.
Your magic.
Multimedia magic.
Yeah. So, I hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed being there.
Yes.
And I think that's of course why I invited you here, that I know, what a fantastic experience it can be to be at one of your events. And I know also that you saw the event before, of course, you started working there, and you saw the potential.
Yeah.
What was it that you saw?
Well, I saw those moments because Kane had planned out everything in advance. When you have only a PowerPoint or a keynote that you're doing, you have to structure the whole presentation in advance. And there's always moments that you don't prepare for. There's always places where you want to have a variety of songs, or you want to have a variety of media. And if you only have a keynote or a PowerPoint, there's no way to plan for that. So what I bring in is I bring in that lucidity. I bring in that kind of spontaneity of going places where nobody really knows. A lot of times I don't even know. Like, I'm just following my intuition. I'm following the moment, the energy in the room, and playing with that. And that's why I call it audiovisual alchemy, because I have a structure, I have a form, but it's happening in the moment with the people that are there.
Yeah.
And that's what creates the magic.
Yeah. I think that we didn't say so much about who you are also, except for what you do now, but you have a background as an actor also. You're a trained actor also.
Yes, I am. So I grew up in a family of half entrepreneurs, half normal working class people. So I have a strong kind of entrepreneurial spirit, and I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing. Like, I wanted to tread my own path. And I got into acting very early. We watched a lot of movies at home, and a lot of them were actually silent movies. We watched Buster Keaton, Laura and Hardy, Charlie Chaplin, stuff like that, where music always was an integral part because he didn't have any lines, so the music was there to give the emotion, like we were talking earlier about the emotion of the character, such an important part. And so I grew up to love, Benny Hill and silent movie, where it's actually Mel Brooks was one of my favorite movies growing up, and I got into acting because I had this urge of telling stories and being in a limelight and being on stage, and that was really the only thing that I ever wanted to do. So I did educate myself as an actor. I have a bachelor's degree in acting, but after that I noticed that I have an urge to do other stuff as well. And there's all the world's a stage, and we're mere actors, like Shakespeare wrote back in the day. That there's a ton of other places as well where you can utilize the talent and experience as an actor. And I kind of evolved into other areas of business as well. And I founded my own company straight out of acting school, and I've been pretty much on that path ever since.
I think that, when it comes to emotions and, understanding emotions, I've been working with actors also. And I found that for them, it's like a whole universe, emotions. So, I was previously in IT also, and it's very different. People use their logical minds a lot. So I also noticed this with actors, that they really are extremely intuitive. And
we're very empathetic beings of sensing other people's energies because we're playing with that. We're playing with each other. We're playing with ourselves in a nice meaning, and we're playing with others, and we're playing with the whole energy of the room. My acting professor back in the day, he said that acting is all about letting out the demons in the beginning of the play, and in the end wrangling them back in. So you're kind of allowing people to play, also play with your energy, and it's about taking people on a journey and really having something to say.
Yeah, but I think also what's interesting, because I also grew up watching a lot of film, and I love film, and me and my husband were always watching film, and so we tend to also analyze, when does it feel good, when is it not good. I can tell immediately when a film is a low budget film, for example.
But you can see it and feel it straight away.
Yes, but that of course has to do with that they don't have the right tools a lot of the time. They don't have the time for editing or coloring and things like that. But we also realized, why is it that the actors are so important? Because they are conveying the feeling of the film, and they are, carrying the emotional story. And if somebody doesn't carry it well, you don't follow and you don't become engaged.
Yeah, because real acting is not really acting, it's reacting. It's being in a moment and just kind of reacting to what's there. And as an actor, you need to be really devoted and kind of engaged in your own craft, in your own thing, and also engaged into the story. Because women say this all the time to men, like, oh, you don't listen. And the guy's like, well, I'm listening. I'm like, yeah, but you're not listening. Like, you're listening, but you're not there. Because you can sense that. The same is with actors. You can feel that when somebody's just kind of saying their lines, when they're doing their thing. Or in their mind, they're thinking of other stuff, or they're actually scared of being there.
Yeah.
So then when you have an actor who's really committed to the story and to the place and knows their job and, and has the ability to play, that's when it becomes really engaging. And that's what I'm striving for as well with this whole public speaking and event facilitating. And I got fascinated by the ability for a person, and this was something that I wanted to develop in myself. Because a lot of times you think that an actor is safe, an actor is comfortable, because they're on a stage or they're on a camera, and a lot of times we feel very safe because that moment has been rehearsed a lot of times. So it's not actually as challenging as it looks from the outside. What is really challenging is going up on stage and just allowing things to happen and allowing words to come out. Or like right now, like I have no idea where my thought is going to go, and this is natural conversation. So allowing just the flow to go. And this was something that I wanted to develop in myself. And that's why I got into events and into personal development and into the whole lecturing part. And I wanted to develop this skill where I could be comfortable of anytime somebody puts a camera in my face or a microphone and says, say something to the world, that I would have actually something to say.
So I think also very interesting also when it comes to music and putting music on films. Or on stage performances, because it's of course very similar. A film is like filming a stage performance, more or less, even though you are in real life sometimes. But of course, the same thing with any theater or event, that music heightens the feeling of it, and the same thing with music. But the interesting thing is, now when we were talking about being intuitive and being in the moment and so on, that when the actors are not, it's noticeable. Then you feel uncomfortable because you feel that this doesn't feel real, and it feels very kind of that this person is trying too hard, and it's not good. And it's a bit the same thing with music. When the music is not good, it makes you feel not comfortable. So when the music the timing is wrong, or it's overpowering the speech or something like that, that's terrible. Then you feel immediately, or it doesn't resonate with what's being said.
Music is such a powerful storytelling tool, and I think it's quite overlooked. We talked about the different filmmaking cultures, and a lot of times in American movies, it's much more structurized and it's analyzed. What is the appropriate music. I remember at a science fair I was maybe 10 years old or something. I saw this clip on the TV. I didn't actually get to this science show myself, but I remember it forever, and it has really kind of laid the groundwork for what I'm doing currently and how I relate to music in a production setting. There was this installation, and it was just a screen with 6 buttons, and there was a short scene of a guy running into a telephone booth, making a phone call, and then ripping his few of his clothes off, and then running again. And you could choose the music by pressing the button. The same scene, but different music, and the scene just totally changed. Yeah. And this is kind of the base that I have for how I relate to stuff that happens on stage or in film, is that music has such a powerful storytelling, or it is such a powerful storyteller, that just by itself, we were speaking earlier about, that you can bring out conflict with, if you're saying like, oh, I love you so much, it's so great to be here, but in the background there's like horror movie music. That's such a powerful way of telling, conflict with a character. And this is the kind of idea that I bring into the event settings as well, and what really makes it different. And I use a lot of cinema music. I use a lot of songs that people can relate to. The kind of speciality that I like to do is, if I'm in Sweden and there's a Swede, asking a question, I'll play Gyllene Tider, or I'll play ABBA, or I play something that people can relate to. If there's a German, I'll play Rammstein, or I play something that instantly people recognize to that culture, or if it's a Persian lady, I'll play Persian music.
So that's something that I noticed at your events, which is very special, that you create a feeling in people of recognition. So even when you are, there's something going on, you play a song that kind of heightens it and brings it out, exactly what is it that's going on.
Or sometimes a little bit distracted as well, on a nice... This depends on who I'm working with, the speakers. With Kane and Alessia, they're very allowing. They actually kind of want me to...
a bit of humor in it too.
They want to play play out the conflict. So if they're speaking about, Swedish ice hockey, then I'll play Den glider in, or I'll play something that people can recognize, they can clap to, which is really, really important, that there's a sense of rhythm, and also something that tells a story that has like meta levels. A lot of times there's like 2 or 3 or 4 levels, and sometimes people don't even notice. They come up to me, ask me like, what was the purpose of that song? And then I'll tell them the story, and they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. So there's layers in my storytelling as well. But it can be very disruptive, and it can be very destructive. So I'm pretty keen and aware of, because if I suddenly put a song on, obviously it will distract the whole thing. Or if I put up a picture of, Donald Trump compared to an animal, it's a funny image and people start laughing. It has such a powerful impact.
What music would you play at a scene like that?
Well, I could play like anytime when I see a picture of Donald Trump, I play like circus music, something, like comical or something like that. To bring out that emotion in that moment, or like hardcore, like army music or something, just to kind of play with.
But of course, that's even, people in power, like you say, army music. Why do you have army music? Because it creates a feeling also.
Sure.
Or like in American movies when they are marching and, to create energy and so on. So music really... is something that portrays people's emotions.
Absolutely.
And it can also create a feeling in you from one moment to another of being sad or happy. So even though it might be you're unhappily in love, so you choose an unhappy in love song, you can also make somebody feel like that by starting to play this music. So if they're watching a scene and then they hear this music and it immediately goes into the emotional state.
And just to go back to the previous subject with, getting people engaged for recognition is very important, because, we like to see our own name. We like to see, when we look at photos, we always look for our own face first. So it's, and getting people, to be able to recognize together, because throughout ancient history, we've always had these moments of going through a rite of passage, or doing something, going on a journey, on a vision quest. Our ancestors in all different cultures, not just in Native American, but like in all different cultures, we've had these processes of going through hardships or going. So we have these stories, we have these myths, you know,
Yeah.
from the Bhagavad Gita
Yeah.
to the Kalevala to, you know,
Yeah.
all of these things. So we as people have this need, this innate need of recognizing, you know,
Exactly.
metaphors and recognizing archetypes, and that's why a lot of movies are built on archetypes.
Yeah.
You know, they're the
Yeah.
hero's journey. You know,
Yeah.
they're recognizable stories.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to bring those in as well, on a logical level, but mostly on an intuitive level. And it's just how I started out. Just briefly on the journey was I did an event with a speaker who didn't have a PowerPoint or he didn't have a presentation, and he was speaking about the law of attraction, you know, the secret of the law of attraction, and he was speaking about that he saw this BMW back in the day, in the 80s, in Venice Beach, and he decided there and then he wants that BMW, and 15 years later he got the BMW, and not just the same model, the exact same car. And he was telling this story how, and he said the model number. And I was working the AV. It was one of my first events that I ever did, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just playing music, you know, having fun and seeing what needed, making announcements and things like that. And when he said the model number and he started, you know, explaining how it looked and how beautiful gray it was and all these details, I just thought to myself, I have internet, I have a computer, I have connection to the projector. Why wouldn't I just grab the image? So I Googled the image and I put it on screen, and this speaker, he just looked at it and I was like, yes, exactly, yes. And he just gave me this confirmation that this could actually be a thing. So I developed all these different processes of how to be able to do that. Obviously, a lot of stuff I know, but I'd say 80% of what I do is totally intuitive and is totally just in the moment, and I just hear it and I sense it and my fingers just start working.
But I do think at the same time, because I've also studied storytelling a lot.
Sure.
But I think also when I started, you know, studying and writing books and so on, novel, you know, creative writing, they also said, don't think that you can ever write a book if you don't read.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, it comes into your mind on a subconscious level. So you are fed these storytelling techniques, and that's why if you don't use them, people don't recognize themselves in the story. They don't know where they are in the story. So that's also something. You know, for example, also when you're watching a film, you need to know what genre is it.
Sure.
So is this supposed to be funny, or is it supposed to be a tragedy? You know, where are we going? And even the most basic things like a story, like in rhetorics, I say a story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not a story.
Sure.
And so, same thing with music. So, you know, I started, you know, working with my daughter, Natalie Veronica, who's a singer, and she also writes her own songs. And so I've been following her journey from when she started working with songwriters and started writing her own songs. That it also has a certain rhythm and structure to it. Myself getting warm inside. I don't wanna. Otherwise, it becomes flat.
Sure.
And that's what I also learned when I was, you know, taking creative writing and in the film sector, and people who evaluate scripts and so on. They said the worst thing is when the whole thing is flat. It's not going anywhere. It's the same all the time.
Yeah.
So you have to create this feeling, and also. You create little conflicts in the story and turning points to create excitement.
Yeah, because if there wouldn't be any bad guys, you know, in movies, everybody would just live happily ever after. There wouldn't be any movie.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have the conflict. There has to be something that creates emotion, and with the conflict is also a sense of uncomfortability. Yeah. And then you resolve it, and you're like, oh. So I think the best kind of movies is where you take a conflict. You can start from a happily ever after scene, and then you just build it into a conflict. There's like a 3-arc structure. Or then, you know, I write my own stuff as well. I'm writing a full feature movie script at the moment, which starts at the main conflict of the movie, and then it goes back a couple of weeks and shows how it builds up into that moment and then kind of resolves it in the end. It plays with the timeline, or then you can have like a Memento thing or Benjamin Button thing where it kind of starts from the end and goes back to the... So you can play, you can of course break the rules when you know, but if it's too complicated, you lose sense. So when we go watch a movie or when we read a story, like why kids want to hear the same story over and over again, they know how it ends, We know how, when we go watch a Marvel movie, we know how it's going to end.
Yeah.
You know, the good guys are going to
Yeah.
win. You know, and there hasn't been a single Marvel movie yet where, except for the last one, where kind of Thanos wins in the end. But it's, you know,
They say
it's gonna
somebody
continue.
can die, but not everyone.
Yeah, not everybody can die. There can be a full victory, but there's like a temporary victory because in those moments you're like gasping for breath, and that
we don't
keeps
want to
you
get
coming
depressed.
back.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
But I was thinking also of, you know, like you, when you work with events, like what's the difference between music that's in the beginning, the middle, or the end?
Yeah, there is a structure in events as well, because you can't start with thanking the speakers for being there and selling the next event. You have to do the work first. So there has to be a structure. And what really has helped me to develop, you know, my own style is that I've gone to hundreds of events myself, even before I started organizing them. And I spent a lot of money on going to events, and I realized I like this, but I don't like spending the money, so I started volunteering for events. And then I got a bigger kind of picture of how the event is structured, what happens at what time, you know, what are the laws, what works, what doesn't work, without having my own kind of even time, yes, but not money invested. And then when I started organizing, I started writing the script of what happens at what time. I just had my previous event on Sunday that I scripted the whole thing, and I presented and produced the whole thing. So I've kind of learned throughout the years how to make it, and I would say that going to events yourself and seeing how you react in those moments, because that's where I always go back to when I choose the music, is like, what would I like to listen to in this moment? And my music taste is very broad as a DJ. I don't like to call myself a DJ, but at that aspect of the work, I'm very broad. So I like to listen to classic and punk rock and you know, reggae and blues and everything in between. So I don't have a distinct taste. I like stuff to be funky and groovy, but I'm sensing like what would be appropriate in this moment.
Can we just have a look at the clip again?
Sure.
Because I think it's also interesting that this one I took in the middle of a seminar.
Okay, cool.
So let's have a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is in the middle of an event where actually there are not speakers on stage, and people are actually, you know, working together. You know, a lot of the time it's only silent when people do that, but you put music to it. What is it? What kind of music do you put to something like that?
Well, just to kind of give a perspective of why I play music is, I think the most annoying and even awkward thing is when you're doing an exercise or even just having a conversation and there's nothing under it. So this kind of gives the blanket. You know, if you're visualizing or you're writing your dreams or something, there should be like engaging music.
No uncomfortable silence.
No, because
staring
silence is horrible unless it's planned. Then you use it as a tool. But like in moments where you want to share or when you want to have creative thoughts and think about your future, obviously you need to have music under it because that gives you kind of like a boost. So in these moments where we're doing networking, there actually is a purpose that we have music that is a little bit distracting, because the purpose of this exercise is to train people how to network in an environment that is chaotic. So we're creating a little bit of chaos for people to kind of handle, because then when you're networking in a normal environment, it feels easier because you're getting the experience of it being difficult. So in this moment, it's actually counterintuitive that we're playing music a little bit too loud and a little bit too high volume for the moment to create this kind of emotion of urgency.
We talked before a bit about this like beat per minute thing. And so that's also, of course, about the energy of the music. So I know that when I'm choosing music for a film, I can choose also different tempos. And I was just thinking now that we're closing up soon here, that, you know, at the end of a seminar, of course, there's a lot of clapping and stuff going on. So what's important, you know, when you're choosing the music for the end, so to give the right feeling and the right tempo and so on?
I grew up watching the Viennese Symphony Orchestra on New Year's Eve. I don't know if you watch it here in Sweden as well. It's like the Viennese orchestra, and they play all the Strauss and all, you know, I or is it only Strauss? But it's all of the classic good stuff, and they always finish with da 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 da, and that's the one that people clap to, and that's the encore. So I'm thinking always as an encore, you want to have people engaged into the experience of clapping. So I call it clappability, like a song needs to have, especially in the end. So you asked earlier about the beginning, the middle, and the end. So to give kind of a brief answer to that, in the beginning you need to kind of gather people in. It can't be too destructive, but it needs to be kind of funky and groovy. I like, Michael Jackson. I like, Kool and the Gang, kind of 70s disco, a little bit of Bee Gees, because a lot of people, old and young, they understand that era, and it's still good music. It's not too distinct of a specific style. There's a lot of different
rhythmic
stuff.
Makes you want to move.
Wants to move kind of like slowly but surely. Depends on the culture as well. So I'll always adjust the music to where I'm playing. Then in the middle you have all of these ups and downs depending on what you want to do. And in the end you want to gather everybody together and clap, because it's a natural instinct when somebody starts clapping that you want to clap in the same rhythm, because if you clap and I clap in a different rhythm, it's kind of difficult. It doesn't feel good. So when you have a lot of people clapping, and there are a specific range that I've analyzed to be 125 to 135 BPM to be like beats per minute, which is about 2 claps per second, which feels kind of natural. And that is when I've tested this in different audiences where I have the audience to clap in a rhythm without giving them a rhythm. What feels like a natural, nice rhythm, and it's usually around 125. Like that's where it lands. It's something in us. I haven't found a scientific validation for this yet, but I think there's something in our brain that it just feels natural. It just feels natural. Some people it's faster, some people it's slower, but as a general theme, and that's where I want to bring people back in the end. And then I'll play something that is, like We Are Family, or something that kind of brings us back
you tend to exactly. So that's what you're really great at. You create the emotional journey. Even the texts are there. It's not just actually the music. You use actually the lyrics.
The lyrics as well. Yeah.
So you're very brilliant at that.
Thank you.
So. I'm thinking that a lot of people make films today, and they do use music, and sometimes I feel that they just choose it mindlessly. And they don't realize also that some music is like it's a sketch. It's a music sketch. It's very thin. It's not a real song. It's like just electronically very simple. And usually it doesn't create at all the right kind of emotion. In fact, the opposite. So closing, it's a journey that you're on, You start with something, you try to create positive energy, but you also don't want people to feel, oh, it's the end and goodbye and it's all over. So that's what I thought is fun when you mentioned also some songs like We Are Family, and it makes you feel still good when you're leaving.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that people who make films, and particularly for marketing, should really think about that. You do want to create a feeling in people that they can relate to what you're talking about, and that they get positive feelings. Like it's happy, and also that it resonates with you as a person also.
I think you need to as a filmmaker, you need to make a stand. You need to if you're, I can't remember the director who made Tree of Life with Brad Pitt, who left me like for days. It was like horrible. I felt nauseous because of the ending of that movie, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. And obviously it was deliberate. He made that choice and wanted to leave that. It's not what I would have done, but it was a very powerful choice. So as a filmmaker, or as an event producer, as a media creator, whatever, or music maker, take a stand, be brave, and say, this is what I want to say. This is what I want to in some way penetrate people's blockages and move people. Because I was just listening to some really bad pop rap last night, and I was discouraged that it had like 139 million views on YouTube, and it was just trash. That a lot of people listen to like really crappy stuff, and the quality, the technical production quality is good. Like we see a lot of movies that are well made, and because of technology today, we have the possibility to create. We can do green screen stuff, and we can do all kinds of surround sound editing and whatnot. We have those tools to our disposal. But if we don't have a story to tell, if we don't have something that we want to share, it's meaningless and it's nothing. And on the contrary, like the Blair Witch Project or something, Project X or something that's been made for like $50,000, you can make a kick-ass movie, or you can make a really good independent movie with really little money, as long as you have something you want to tell and you take a stand. Not just create because I want to be a famous movie director. No, what do you have to say? What is your purpose, and what is your mission, and what is your story?
I was going to say also that today, when we have a lot of Netflix series and things like that the theme music and the graphics that they create at the beginning gives a lot of the feeling of the whole product. And it also keeps you tied in to the whole story.
Absolutely.
And the repetition of it. So I think also that even if you, for example, make a lot of films, you can have your own theme music. So you can even, of course, get a composer to make your music.
Yeah. That defines a style as well.
Yeah. So exactly. So I actually have my own theme music.
You should.
And it was kind of fun because they asked me also what I resonate with. Yeah. So it should be something which is also close to you, not just any music, but it should, when I choose for people, I try to make it suit their personality, kind of, their energy.
Sure. And this is another thing that I brought in from my childhood. I was watching a lot of wrestling, World Wrestling Federation, and also boxing, where every boxer or wrestler, they have their own theme song. Yeah. They have their own theme that you instantly recognize. This is Hulk Hogan, or this is Mike Tyson, or this is whoever. And I teach this to people all the time about public speaking, that as a speaker you have to have your own song. You have to have their own thing, because anytime a person listens to that song or hears it on the radio after they hear you speak somewhere, they instantly reminisce who you were and what you were talking about. So it's something that you leave people with, like you were saying. You want to leave people with something, because if you watch a 2-hour movie or binge watch a season of a TV series, or you listen to music, or even read a book, or go to a seminar, that's only a short period of time. What you want to do as an artist is to leave people with something that they carry it with them in their life. And also from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's a good thing, that's people think about your stuff, so they go out and buy more, or start reading into, who's this Christopher? What is it? Oh, he's done that. Who's
and
Naseem?
You recognize it, because you recognize not just what you look like, but also your sound and your energy.
Yeah, and then they're on the outlook, like, Naseem came out with a new movie, I want to watch it. So from a business perspective and from an artistic perspective, you do want to create an impact and create, you want to be sticky with people.
And a kind of consistency. So it's the same, you don't have different music every time you arrive on the scene, so anyway, so let's sum up a bit with some advice for people who also make their own films, for example. What's your best tips about choosing music for people, their own marketing films?
Well, really think about what music is, that it's a powerful storytelling tool, and the impact. Don't undervalue the importance of music in any aspect, but also don't let it overpower, because you see a lot of times as well where it becomes like the music video, where clearly the music is the most important part. So it's a balance. Find that balance. But I think the biggest advice is really dig deep inside yourself and think about, who are you as an artist, as a person, as a human being, and what is it that you want to share? What is the story? And if you don't have anything to share, shut up and listen to other people, and go out and consume until you can be the producer. The world is filled with mindless stuff, so it's good for craft. It's good to train. I'm not saying don't create if you don't have anything to say. It's good for practice, but don't make it something that it's not, you know. That it's good to go out and just, you know, learn from other people and really be humble. As an artist, it's really good to know your value, because we talked about the business aspect. It's good to know your value, but don't, you know, be entitled and overprice yourself, and, you know, try to find those places where you can, you know, build your brand and build your way up and make the connections and just be a good person to work with. I think that's a major reason why I get hired a lot. Is I'm quite eccentric, like I have my own ways, but I've also paid my dues. Like I've done my fair share of volunteer work and very cheap labor. So I built up that expertise and that network and those testimonials and those references. Yes. So, you know, I can't compare myself now to like 20 years ago, but 20 years ago I put my head in the sand and I was just, or head to the ground, and I was just churning stuff out, and I'm willing to pay the price. I sense, especially in the younger generation, there's a lot of entitlement because there's a lot of opportunities. But an opportunity and an entitlement is not the same. You can see that there's an opportunity out there, but it doesn't mean that you're entitled to have it.
Yeah.
You see that there's a Bentley on the road, but that doesn't mean, you know, and you can want it, but it doesn't mean that it's yours. You kind of have to work your way up to
I would say that it's, you know, also about being very authentic.
Yeah.
And so when you choose the music, it should be something that is representative of you.
Yeah.
So, you know, as you say, also don't take something that's too powerful and it doesn't really suit your brand.
Yeah.
And you know, try be yourself. Choose the stuff that resonates with your personality.
Yeah.
Even if it's soft, but you know.
Yeah, and these day and age, it's quite easy to get music as well.
Yeah.
There's so many talented people out there. So if you need a jingle or if you need cinema music, instead of using something that is already famous, go out and buy it. Go on Fiverr or Freelancer or something. Find somebody, you know, a student who also wants to build their brand and do something together and utilize talent and make something of your own.
Also listen to it afterwards and see does it create the feeling that you intended for it to create, and try, you know, a couple of different songs. I think that's a good exercise to see, like the photo booth thing, that you know, try and see what happens to your message if you choose different music.
And I've done that for this movie that I'm writing as well. I've done it with certain scenes. I've tried different music, and it makes sense. You see it in a different perspective, because you also sometimes, as an artist, you get blind. You become blind to your own art. So it's good to see it in you know, or listen to it in a different way for sure.
So this is a very exciting subject, and we could talk for days. But you are off now to do your thing.
Yes.
And
to prepare.
Yes, which is very interesting. And also one thing that's, you know, also essential is timing, of course.
Yeah.
Exactly when does the music stop and does it start, you know? And you know, so you have to be really focused, right?
I do. So taking care of myself is very important. So especially when I travel, and that's another thing for artists, anybody who's watching this, that, you know, really do take care of yourself. I can't urge that enough. You know, try to get your sleep in. I know this is boring, you know, mom and dad stuff, but you know, really, because that's where your creativity comes from, is from a sense of well-being. You know, it's good to have a time crunch sometimes, not to be too comfortable, but it's also really, really important that you have that energy. Like if I sleep 3 hours before a show, it will impact how focused I am. If you're going out for a movie shoot and you've only slept 2 hours, you won't be as creative and you won't be able to handle the last minute changes.
But that's the thing with all the little details of your product. So in a film, a lot of people think it's just something to smack on, but it's not. And also the tempo and the flow of the music has to be adapted to the message. So it's a very, very focused thing, and when you do it right, you don't notice it. But when you do it wrong, you do.
You do. You were just telling stories about, you know, stuff that happens on a movie shoot. I like to look at you know, creative production, and especially live productions, but also movie productions or any kind of camera operated productions. It's like a boxing match. You can prepare, you can train, and you can, you know, rehearse your things, and you know exactly how you're going to punch, you know, I don't know, visualizing, you know, how it's going to happen. But once you get that other person in the ring with you, everything is off. Like you have no clue really what's going to happen unless you exactly know that person. You've analyzed their stuff. So obviously the more you know, the better you're prepared, the bigger your chances are for it to go well. but there's always that chance that suddenly, you know, the police have, you know,
Yeah.
cut off the area where you want to film or something. And in that moment, you get hit in the face, you need to be able to
Yeah.
improvise. So for that, you need to be prepared, you need to be, you know, relaxed and just kind of, you know, sharp. So it's a really good, take good care of yourself. I
Yeah,
think that's the...
but it's also like with musicians. I mean, I've been working with my daughter and so on, and that's also, you know, it's also in the moment. You know, how
Yeah.
the song turns out. You know, how the sound comes out, the
Sure.
emotion.
And it's different from
Yeah,
day to
it can
day.
be very
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
different. So the nuances are very interesting. But that's
Absolutely.
life for you, and like every occasion, every event is different because of the people
Sure.
there. Every talk is different, you know. So even when we talked before, we talked about other things. Suddenly, this talk was different. So
Yeah.
you know, we go with the flow, and I hope you enjoyed listening. And you know, to have some things to relate to, and also we talked a lot about acting today, and I think
We
that's
did.
yeah.
And that's something that I want to leave you with is just be curious, you know, like be crazy curious of how things turn out, and just because that will give you a sense of playfulness and a sense of exploring, because that's creativity, is being curious, like, how does this turn out? Like, I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm gonna
And
try
then
to
try
find
it, as you say,
Right.
and perfect your craft. Doesn't
Yes.
matter if it's not perfect the first time. Just practice, listen, and you know, use your intuition, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you for visiting us.
Thank you
and
so much.
Have a really nice show tonight. I know you will.
Thank you.
Bye bye.